She and I had so many discussions about the why she created Max and the why she wanted to take her own life and the why was she here on this earth.
Welcome to Homes That Heal, the podcast that transforms your life and home into a sanctuary of health, healing, and happiness. Hi, I'm Jen Heller, a wellness educator, infrared sauna expert, and your guide to living intentionally. Each week, we'll explore a variety of wellness tools, along with detoxification, weight loss, and anti-aging tips to boost your energy and align your mind and body so you can thrive in life, not just survive. Your health is your wealth, and it all starts at home. Let's dive in and create a home that heals.
Hey friends, Jen here. Welcome back to Homes That Heal. I hope you're having an amazing day, whatever it is that you're doing. I am very, very emotionally excited to share this particular show with you today. It's definitely something that's been on my heart for quite some time, and many of you have been asking about, why did I take a break this fall and why did I kind of disappear? I will say, full disclosure, I take fall breaks all the time. I love fall. I live in Wisconsin, and I just think the seasons are amazing. So I like to take full advantage of the time and the space and the cool, crisp air. Plus, we had quite the remodel project going on. I wouldn't call it remodel, quite the transformational project going on in our backyard this year. Pretty much all summer long, the backyard was under construction to create what I like to call the next phase of our sanctuary space. So that was under construction most of the summer. So once it came to fall, when it was complete, I really just wanted to, or I should say, we really wanted to just enjoy that space. So that's what we did. We've got a fire pit back there and a whole grill station, kitchen station. We live in the woods. So it was just a really, really beautiful time to kind of sink into nature. And so that's primarily what I like to do in the fall. And I hope that you have your own fall detox routines as well. So before I jump into today's story, just one little housekeeping note. Hesitated to even share this because it's not even really that relevant to the story that I want to talk about today. But we are in November. It is Black Friday season, and many of you have been listening to me talk about saunas for the better part of a decade or two. And many ask, what's the best time to buy a sauna? Hands down, you guys, this is the month, Black Friday. I like to call it Black November, actually, because it is the lowest sale pricing for saunas going on now through December 1st. So if creating a wellness sanctuary and bringing an infrared sauna into your home has been on your bucket list or on your heart or in your routine, or just something you stumbled across yesterday and you think you should get one, I highly recommend getting in touch with me. Send me an email, send me a note, call me, text me, whatever you need to do. Now between the end of the month, it's absolutely going to be the best and most efficient time to get your sauna. So if you haven't done so already, please hop over to jenhellerlifestyle.com. Click on the infrared sauna page. You can shop. Pricing is all there. And of course, like I said, just reach out with any questions. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about what I've been up to this year, as well as where I'm going in 2026. And so the best place for me to start is just get right into it. So back in February, already getting emotional. I should say, full disclosure, before I get into this, I apologize ahead of time if I go quiet, gain my composure. This is very emotional for me to share. And so you can already hear it in my voice. It's already happening. This isn't what I would call tough to share, but these words are something I've kept in. My inner circle, of course, knows what's going on, and my family knows. And my team knows, of course, but this is the first time that I'm actually going to be speaking it out loud for the world to hear. And it's just, it feels like a release, to be quite honest. It feels like it's very bittersweet. So please don't take these tears as sadness. Everything is okay. It's just, this is very personal, and it's going to be a bit therapeutic for me as we go to share this. So where this begins is in February of earlier this year. I got a phone call from my mom on a Saturday morning. And as soon as I answered the phone, I could hear it in her tone. Something was wrong. And she said that the night before, my brother's daughter, Morgan, who was then 18 at the time, she had said I got a call from your brother. Morgan was standing on top of a bridge overlooking the Wisconsin River in our hometown of Rhinelander in the middle of the night, freezing cold. If you don't know, Wisconsin is freezing in February. And she was standing on the top of this bridge and was planning to jump in and take her own life. And my heart sank because I was waiting for her to finish the story, and she went quiet, and my heart sank because my brother's daughter is Morgan is the only grandchild in our family, and I knew that she's very precious to everyone, but particularly my mom. And so I waited a moment and gained my composure, and I just said, "What happened?" And she said, "By the grace of God, she got off that bridge, and instead of jumping in, which we knew either the impact would take her life or the freezing cold water, obviously, and something came over her, and she stepped off of the bridge, and she walked a few blocks to the police department and walked in and said, 'I need help.' And the police department, of course, brought her to the hospital, and she was checked in. And so the following morning, my brother called my mom and told her what had happened, and had said that she surrendered her cat to the animal shelter. So I knew this was serious because she loved that cat. And I have to say, just without going into all the details, this is not the first time that Morgan has threatened to take her life. This was just one of many, actually, in this 18-year-old kid's life. But there was something different about this. I could hear the fear in my mom's voice, and something in me said that something was different about this, and that even though she stepped off that bridge, I knew that something was really wrong and that there was going to be a point where she did succeed in this. And I don't know, I don't even know how to explain it, you guys. Like, something just came over me, and I was like, I've seen enough. I have watched over the last I would say 5 years ago. This has started when she was maybe 13, 14. Just tough in middle school, bullied, just kind of more of a quiet, shy, introvert kid. And this was just kind of spiraling. And, by the age of 15, 16, like really troubled and threatening her life and just sad and just really in a dark place, and was struggling with friends and struggling in school and struggling with some identity issues, and was really just trying to find her way. And my brother had reached out to me several times, of course, and was like, "I need your help. I need your help." And at one point when she was 15, we did consider, I said, she could come and live with us because she wanted to come live with me. And Morgan and I have always had a very special relationship. As I said, she's the only young child. Mark and I don't have children, but Morgan and I have always had this beautiful relationship, kind of like the cool aunt relationship. I always told her, if you need anything, you need to let me know. If you get to a point where you're in serious trouble, I need you to call me. And so I was frustrated because obviously she didn't call me. My mom did. But I knew that I had taken kind of a back seat watching this and just trying to step in and intervene when I could and help my brother when he could. He is not with Morgan's mother, and my brother decided to part ways early before she was even born. They just decided that that relationship wasn't going to work. And so obviously they've been trying to co-parent her whole life. And it's just been challenging, and I'm not gonna get into all those details, and it's none of my business, quite frankly, and I don't know all the details, but the bottom line is there was this kid who was kinda tossed back and forth and just really felt, in her words now, just abandoned and just not really grounded or rooted. And I've always kinda watched this. I've always kinda sat back and watched this, and, whenever Morgan and I were together, I was like, "Hey, I need you to reach to me if you're really struggling. I need you to let me know when things get really bad." And I will say that she did, and she did tell me some things over the years, but this was different. Like I said, this was different. And so after I talked to my mom for a few minutes and she was just hysterical, I just knew that if this kid took her life, my family was not going to recover from this well. Like, this was going to be a hole in our family that was unrepairable, as it is in every family, right? And so something shifted in me. I don't know how to describe it, but something just came over me, and I was like, "I've seen enough. She's 18 now. I'm stepping in." And so I asked my mom, where is she? How do I talk to her? How do I get a hold of her? And I ended up having a conversation with Morgan's mother, also briefly on the phone that morning. And I said, I want to talk to her. Of course, she was in a facility, in the hospital, and only had certain times of the day that she could talk for like 5 or 10 minutes, that she was allowed phone calls. And I said, I want to talk to her. And so I was able to call her, and it went something like this. Basically, I was like, hi, what's going on? What happened? And she just said, I don't know. I don't want to live. I don't want to be here anymore. And I said, well, that's interesting. Can you tell me why? And she was just like hollow in her words, so to speak. Like I could hear like the lost soul. She was just like, I don't know. I don't want to be here anymore. And I just said, okay, how long are you in the hospital for? And she said, I don't know, I think 7 to 10 days. And I said, what are you going to do then? And she said, I don't know, probably go home, maybe try again. Not sure. I was like, hmm, interesting. Um, well, what if you came to live with me? There was like a silence on the end of the phone. And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, what if you just left all of that behind and you just came to live with me and Mark for a while? Which again, I have to tell you, like these words just kind of came flying out of my mouth. I hadn't even talked to Mark, obviously. I just was, I was like in motion, in like solution mode. And she said, what do you mean? I could come and live with you? And I said, maybe. Is that what you want to do? And she said, yeah, I think that might be that could be an idea. And I said, well, why don't you be on your best behavior while you're there? And then when you get out, you can come and stay with us for the weekend and we can talk about what this looks like. And she was like, okay. And I could hear just the slight tone of hope in her voice. And she basically said, okay, let's do that. And so we spoke a couple times over the course of the 7 to 10 days that she was there. And then fast forward, when she got out that weekend, she and my mom came to visit for a few days. And while she was here, we kicked around some ideas about getting her an apartment, getting her somewhere, what does this look like? Getting her a place down by us. Is she going to stay with us? We considered buying a house close by so that she was just, close by, but still had her independence, basically, so that we didn't feel like we were completely taking over. But then Morgan and I went for a ride in the car one night, just the two of us. And I won't share all the details of that conversation, but basically it was her and I just bare bones, like, what is it that you want? Like, what's going on? Why do you want to kill yourself? Why do you want to take your own life? What is going on in your head? And she just laid it out, you guys. Like, she just laid it out that was struggling with, feeling like she didn't have any purpose, didn't know who she was. Full disclosure, at this time, she was really leaning into that she wanted to be a boy instead of a girl, which this is not a show about ideology or anything of that nature. But she, definitely was going down this path of, I think wanted to be a boy or a guy. Being a girl is too difficult. But we were kind of dancing around that conversation because this was more about mental health. This was more about her mental well-being. And I knew that she had created this avatar, right? Like she had just created this other personality, so to speak, in my mind. But I wanted to know why. Like, why would an 18-year-old kid who grew up with everything she could have wanted, really, like our family, like just loved on her so much and she was so loved. And so I just wanted to know, like, what's missing? Why do you feel lost? Like, what is going on? And so we had a really beautiful conversation and she just said, like, I don't want to be there anymore. And so I remember thinking back to, years ago when I was living in Rhinelander and I had all these aspirations of being an entrepreneur and like quitting my job and, I was getting divorced at the time and like I was single and I just wanted to hit the reset button. And I was like, you know what? I remember that feeling, like, I wanted to hit the reset button so bad, I was crawling out of my own skin, and I just kind of felt like she was in the same place, and so I thought, "Okay, I'm gonna give her the resources potentially to do this," and so I said, "Well, what if you just came to live with us?" I said, "I don't really think buying this house." We were actually where we were going on that car ride is we were going to look at a house that was for sale that Mark and I were gonna buy so that she could live in it, and we got over to the neighborhood, and we're like, "Yeah, it's a nice house, it's a cute neighborhood, it's convenient." But then we're like, "Yeah, this isn't really what she needs." She needed a more family unit and, like, a deeper, closer, more spiritual connection and more groundedness. And Mark and I live in a big house in the woods. It's kind of a wellness sanctuary, if you will. And it's like, what better place to have her be is with us? And so we talked, and I just said, well, why don't you just come live with us for a while? Let's not buy this house. Let's not get an apartment. Let's just have you come live with us for a while and we'll just figure this out. And she just looked at me and beamed a smile. And it was like, okay, that was done. Done. So came home. Mark and my mom were sitting on the couch talking. And I said, well, we figured this all out. She's gonna come live with us. This is, what we're gonna do. And voila, like, that's what we did. And so it was just, it's one of those things where she was like, "Well, how do I get out of my job? How do I get out of my apartment? I just signed my lease and all these things." And I'm like, "You know what? All these things are figure outable. People change jobs all the time. People get out of apartments. People sell houses. People leave relationships. People stop doing a lot of things all the time. So we'll just take it one by one." And that's what we did. We worked with her on in all the things that we need to basically unravel. So basically, it was now getting close to the first part of April, and we said, April 1st, you're going to come live with us. We got out, helped her get out of her lease. Fortunately, her landlord was fantastic, and she gave notice at her job. Like, everything just fell into place. Everything. She even applied for a new job around here, and she got it immediately. She interviewed, and they offered her the job right on the spot. So that was fantastic. And so fast forward, I'm just gonna kind of move through a bit of a timeline here today too, so I apologize if I'm gonna try to not be all over the board, but I'm just kinda moving through a bit of a timeline. So fast forward April and May, Morgan moves in, and everybody's kind of getting their legs underneath them, so to speak, and just kind of feeling into, this new situation. Mark and I didn't have children. We have cats. We live a very free-spirited lifestyle, and honestly, we kinda had a rule that, most of our friends and family knew about, which was there was, like, a 3-day rule, like, we didn't have guests in our house usually for more than, 3, 4 days, and now here we've got Morgan who's moved in, we've went up north, got all of our stuff, brought it down, put most of it in storage, but basically just set her up in one of our spare rooms, and just started taking it a day at a time, and I'm not gonna lie, you guys, like, holy cats. It was an adjustment, and at first, it was like, "Okay, day at a time." And then I gotta tell you, things were just all over the board. Just really, really fun and exciting in a lot of ways. She was thriving in her job right away, but there were also a ton of things to unravel and get to the meat of, and then dig into the why, right? Like, Morgan, I could tell, and this is just me being full disclosure, like, I could tell because of her childhood of kind of bouncing back and forth between her parents' homes, and both of her parents moved a few times while she was a kid too, so it's like she never really felt grounded anywhere, and I could tell she even still, like, was feeling like she wasn't totally knowing if she was welcome, how long she was gonna be here, and so it was just this everyday challenge and everyday consistency of letting her know that she's loved, that she's not a burden, that she's welcome here as long as she needs to stay. I, in my mind, shifted into solution-based stuff is like, okay, we need to get to the root of what's really going on here. And so I corralled some of my closest resources and sat down with her in and around, like, what is it that you want to do? How does it that you wanna feel? We had a couple of very pointed conversations about this identity and who she felt like she was because, again, she had decided around the age of 15, 16 that she wanted to transition into a guy, and she had created, the name Max and was really leaning into that, changed her hair, changed her clothes, also got her hands on testosterone and was taking supplements to really transition into someone different. And when we sat down, when she moved here, I said, "Okay, I'd like for you to, now that it's just you and me, and there's no, everything's on the table, tell me why. I wanna know why. I wanna know all the reasons that you feel that you wanted to be someone other than Morgan." And let me just tell you guys again, this is not a judgment on anything in relation to the trans community, into identity, nothing like that. This is a story about an 18-year-old girl, my brother's daughter, who I've watched from the sidelines bob and weave through some pretty deep traumatic things as a young child, but then as a teenager, navigating a lot of really tough life things that's challenging for adults to go through, much less a teenager. So I really devoted a lot of time to trying to get to understand the why before I even shifted into how can I help? What do you need from a supported standpoint? I needed her to tell me in her own words why. And you guys, what I got was a lot of standoffish, like, I don't knows. I'm not sure. I don't know. And so for the first couple of months, I will say it was pretty challenging. It was pretty tough. There were a lot of tears, a lot of fear, a lot of nightmares, a lot of sleepless nights on everyone's behalf. My goal was just to keep her happy and keep her healthy. I did a ton of praying. I can't tell you how many times I was like, "Okay, God, like, show me where to go. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say?" Because I don't know that I have the words. And all I kept hearing, you guys, was keep her healthy, keep her safe, keep her loved, and keep her alive. Like, that's literally all I kept hearing in my head. And so that's what I did was I rounded up my resources. As I said, I'm very blessed to have a phenomenal amount of resources and friends and people. And so we changed, now that she's living in our house, her food, her diet changed. She went into eating, now she's eating wholesome organic food, balanced meals, full of nutrition. We implemented some supplements, some very specific supplements to really support her immune system, her mental health. We also removed, and this was on her behalf, I must say, she decided on her own, but I supported it 100%. She went off all the medications that she was on, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, all the deep level SSRIs, like all the things that she said she didn't want to be on because she didn't feel like herself. She said she felt like a shell of a human. She wanted support to remove those, and I wholly supported it. And through that process, she also removed the testosterone and decided that she was just going to be completely detoxed from everything other than food and nutrition. And we were going to just sit with that for a while. So that was kind of stage one. In addition to, I introduced her to a few key friends for therapy, and she was working with a couple of people specifically related around testing her body for the right nutrition, liver support, adrenal support, things like that. Also introduced her to a chiropractor, to work on some serious physical pain and ailments that she was having. She was waking me up in the middle of the night in like severe pain sometimes. And so we really just needed to focus in on loving her and loving her body and just understanding like how can we be the most loving and supported in this situation. And then of course she and I were just having a lot of conversations about how she's feeling. I kind of had a rule or a couple rules when she moved in, and it was no, don't lie to me, respect our home, don't lie to me, and be fully transparent, knowing that there's no judgment. And I got to say, you guys, like, I am not perfect by any means. And shout out to all the parents listening to this because boy, have I learned a deep, deep level of respect for parents. Because obviously I am not one and I was not one. And now I was kind of in this like de facto parent role. And it was very difficult some days to listen and not be judgmental or not like fling in with my own thoughts and my own ideas and my own perspective on things. But I promised myself that I would be as open and loving and honest as I could with her so that she knew she was safe and that she knew that she could count on me to share her deepest, darkest fears and her deepest, darkest concerns while we navigated this situation. And so that's what we did, you guys, just day by day. And boy, I mean, looking back on it now, I mean, those are definitely the first few months were the most tumultuous on her, on Mark and I, obviously. It was challenging for our marriage. It was challenging for running our businesses and our day to day schedules. But Morgan became the priority. She became the priority day one when she came into our home. And she remained the priority, of course. But I have to say it definitely took a significant toll on my heart, on my soul, and watching someone else be in pain. Again, shout out to you parents out there. Watching someone else be in such pain and stress and agony. And also, let me remind you that she continued to want to take her own life and continue to tell me that she was not feeling like she wanted to live anymore. And it was so interesting, you guys, to see how candid and just poignant she would say that. And there were some days when I believed her, and then there were some days where I was like, these are just words. Like, I didn't feel like she totally meant it, but I could tell it was coming from somewhere. So every day I just wanted to learn more about where are these voices coming from and the why is she feeling this way. And so fast forward, a few weeks and we're moving along and things are changing. She's doing good in her job, but it's starting to become kind of awkward and she's, having some challenges with people at work. I will say too, just a step back here. Obviously, again, you guys know that my home is like a wellness fortress. So anybody who's here is completely living in like this harmonious wellness retreat spa. So she's also kind of become my sidekick at this point. So she's doing sound baths with me. We're taking walks every day. She's in nature. I'm teaching her meditation. Her room and our house are full of crystals. She has her own crystals. There's different modalities here that I introduced her to the brain tap machine, the sauna. She's using the sauna. She was using the PEMF machine for pain and just moving energy out of the body. The goal was to help regulate her nervous system. So what happened and I also will say just a deep, deep level of love, lots of hugs, lots of I love yous, just pouring into her. And this energy just started to shift and move and shift and move. And she was also releasing a ton of weight. I will say, changing her food and nutrition as well as getting off the drugs, supplemental, supporting with a few specific things around the liver, and then just, of course, the sleep. She was actually sleeping through the night. Her body just started releasing and just shedding weight like crazy. When she came to us, she was probably 100 pounds overweight. And that's, yeah, I would say about 100, 120, probably 100 pounds overweight for her height and size. And so at this point, we're releasing significant weight is just starting to fall off of her, and which is great. But now it's kind of becoming a little bit awkward for her at work. People are starting to ask questions because her physical appearance is changing as she's starting to kind of let her guard down a little bit. And she's working through therapies and she's, grounding and, like I said, doing a lot of energy releasing and spending a ton of time in nature. And anytime she would struggle with something, I would just say, get outside, lay in the grass. Like that was my answer whenever she would, unless it was something serious, of course, then we'd sit down and like really talk about it. But if she was, like, "Oh, I'm feeling off, I'm feeling this," my answer was always, "Get outside and lay in the grass. Go lay in the grass for 10 minutes and come back in and tell me how you feel." Like grounding in the earth. And so just teaching her to love herself and to listen to her body and get into her alignment, this shift started to really, really happen. And we really started to dig into the healing of what was really going on. And then I started to notice a change in her. Like she was, I would say a couple months in, she was deciding on her own what she needed to do. She was picking out her own crystals that she knew she needed to put in her pocket that day. She was deciding, I'm going to go over to Rock Lake and put my feet in the water and just do some grounding. Like she, after a few months of her learning this behavior and learning how I operate my life and how I think getting back, connected to God and source and Mother Earth, as well as just getting spiritually aligned, I could see this shift starting to happen. And she was starting to sleep a little bit better and started to really get rooted into who she was. But I want to stop here for just a second and just say too that at this point in time, we're a few months in, and I am just like my sleep, I'm pouring everything, every ounce of energy that I have to spare is going to Morgan because, again, all I kept hearing was keep her safe, keep her loved, keep her healthy, keep her alive. And so I just became her anchor, and literally and figuratively. I became her anchor when she didn't know herself. I became her anchor, and she definitely was turning some corners, but there were still, now the pendulum is swinging harder in both directions, having really great days and then having really hard days, like things were crashing sometimes. And so it became a little bit erratic. And I also want to pause here just to say too, like Mark, who's a phenomenal husband and partner in life, but also just really stepping in as kind of a de facto father figure here and really giving her the grounded, rooted masculine energy that I think was needed in her life, and just like really stepping in and helping keep me grounded when I wanted to lose my mind, when I wanted to lose my shit a little bit. I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't have the energy. I don't have it. He would remind me who I am and remind me why we're here. And that's to be the collective one and be a family and to love on each other. And that, business is secondary and everything, like nothing else matters, and nothing else matters. And so there were some really tough days where I really, really needed that. And so I also wanted to say my team was phenomenal as well because this not only took a huge toll on my family and my personal life, but this affected the Jen Heller team and how I did business and how I showed up every day. So I just want to step in and say thank you for that as well. Okay, so I want to fast forward a bit to a very pivotal time, and this was in June. So again, Morgan's been with us for a few months. Things are going in the right direction. She's feeling good. She's sharing some things. The drugs and the testosterone and some things have left her body. She's really starting to sink into, I would say, a little bit of feminine energy is starting to emerge, and she's starting to share with me like, I think I want to lean into that. I think I want to, she's understanding why she created Max in that season in her life. And she came to me one day and said that she was ready to transition back, detransition and transition back into the girl she felt she was. And I said, okay, what does that look like? And so we had some conversations around it. And she was headed up north that week to go to graduation, and she was excited to kind of show up in that way. She was going to share with the family and some of her friends that she was going to set down the name Max at that time and just really wanted to choose this time as a reset to become, to step into a different season, different chapter, kind of close the chapter on high school and really lean into that. And unfortunately, something shifted and graduation did not go as planned. She was met with a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear and faced a lot of the kids at school that were bullying her. And it just kind of spiraled her back into getting in her own head and just thinking that, just getting some fears around she couldn't do this right now. She couldn't do this right now. And I just, of course, was supportive of that and said, "It's no problem, it's okay." And she was gonna come back home in a few days, and then on the last day she was there, my mom called me and said, "Something's going on with Morgan. There's something going on with Morgan." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" I mean, I just talked to her, she sounded fine to me. She said, "No, something is wrong." And I said, "Okay, well, she's coming home later today, I'll talk to her and we'll figure out what's going on." Well, she came home that day and I could tell she was not in the right mind, but she just basically said, "I'm tired. It's been a long weekend. I don't wanna talk about it. I don't wanna talk about it." I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna honor that." So we didn't talk about it. And the next day, she was supposed to go to work and, had a full busy day of work. It was like a 10-hour day. So she went out the door at 8 o'clock, like she was going to work. Everything was fine. And I figured, all right, well, we're gonna talk in the evening. Well, that evening came and I was upstairs in my office and Mark texted me. Remember, it was around 6 o'clock PM and Mark texted me and said, "What time is Morgan coming home? What time are we having dinner?" And I said, "Oh, Morgan should be home. Is she not home?" And he said, "No, she's not home. What time is she supposed to be home?" And I said, "Well, she was done at 4:30. She should be home." And then I just had this like sinking pit feeling in my gut, like, interesting. Maybe she's stuck in traffic. And so I texted, and the text that I got back was probably one of the most gutting text messages I ever received. And it was her letting me know that she didn't go to work that day. She actually had taken off. She had packed her car unbeknown to us. She walked out the door that morning, got in her car, and started driving. And by the time I caught up with her, she was 2 states away. She was in one of the Dakotas, I think it was. And the text message read something to the effect of, "I'm okay. Please don't worry about me. I no longer want to be a burden to you. You can throw all my things away. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I've done this to you. I'm going out west. I've taken my graduation money and I'm going to go out west and enjoy a few days and then I'm going to kill myself." Those were the words that I read. And I sat in my office chair. This was a Tuesday. And I sat in my office chair and I had been working all day recording shows and just busy, 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 doing business, doing things. And I sat in my chair and I thought to myself, how could this happen? What on earth? How did I not know? I immediately started blaming myself. And I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And because she was far away, right? Like out of reach. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, I've lost her. How am I going to tell my brother? I didn't know what to do. So I just sat with it for a second. I knew Mark was downstairs and I walked downstairs and I just looked at him and he's like, "What's wrong?" And I just said, "She's gone. She took off and I'm not sure what to do. She's 2 states away. I just tried calling her and she didn't answer, but she's texting me and I could see she's reading my messages. So she's alive, but I don't know where she's at and I don't I don't know what to do." And so I just sat for a minute and I said, I think I need to call my brother." And, Mark said, "I think you need to call your brother. I think you need to tell him what's going on," because I thought to myself, and I'll be honest, you guys, I sat for a minute thinking, if I don't call him and something happens to her, he's never gonna forgive me. But if I do call him, he's gonna be angry and upset with me because he trusted me to take her in, and I was scared. I didn't know what to do. And so I called him and I just said, "Here's what's going on. Maybe you could call her. Maybe she'll answer." I said, "She's not answering for me, and it sounds like she's made a decision and she's gonna go." And I said, I can't, there's I don't have a private plane. I can't catch up with her. I can't catch her fast enough. So if she does something right now or today, I don't know, I don't know exactly what to do. And then I remembered I had a tracker on her, and so I did check that, and I could see exactly where she was. And while my brother was trying to call her, I called the non-emergency police department here in town because I said, "I don't know what else to do. I don't have resources like that," you know? So I called the non-emergency police, and a woman answered the phone, and I very calmly just said what happened. I said, "My name is Jen Heller. I live here in town. My niece lives with me. She's 18. She's taken off. I believe she's 2 states away in South Dakota. I'm not sure what to do, and she is threatening to take her life, but I understand that there's, like, this 24-hour rule, and you're not if somebody needs to be missing for a period of time." I said, "I'm just pleading with you, please. Is there anything you can do?" And so she said, "Hold on a moment." And so I don't know what she did, but she came back on the line, and she said that she was gonna send an officer to our home, which they did, and within minutes, they knew exactly her location and had that local police department on her ass. Or let me just say, within a block of her. I asked them not to approach her because I didn't wanna scare her or think she was in, like, deep trouble, but they had located her and had eyes on her, like, physical eyes on her. And I have to just say the amount of gratitude I have for that woman who give me a minute, who I can only believe was also probably a mom, and, I don't even know her name actually, but I could just tell that she she stepped up and she helped, and within a few minutes, we knew exactly where she was. There was a police officer at her house, telling us what we needed to do. I did get Morgan on the phone. She finally called me, and I just said, "Listen, I don't know what your plan is, and, but I have resources on you right now. So you're safe. Everything is fine. We want you to come home." She immediately started crying because she realized, and this is not funny, but she realized that she couldn't stay anywhere because you couldn't get a hotel when you're 18. She couldn't check in anywhere, and she got scared on what she was gonna do, and so that told me that she really didn't wanna do this. This isn't something she really wanted to do, and so, long story short here, I know I'm kinda dragging this on a little bit, but this was very pivotal because we had such a loving conversation, and I was like, "Morgan, come home. You need to come home. There's nothing that we can't face together. We love you. You have purpose in this life. You are meant to be here. You are meant to go through these challenges. All the conversations about life happens for you, not to you." I said, "You're not in trouble. We're not angry with you. We just need you to come home." And so she spent the night in her car at a wayside truck station. We found a close by truck station where she slept in her car. The police had eyes on her, so we knew she was safe. And I said, I need you to get up in the morning, set your alarm, and you just need to start driving home. I need you to just get some rest first because I could tell she was just crying and hysterical and just angry and just all over the board. And I said, I need you to just get some rest. And then in the morning, you're going to call me and you're going to just start heading home. And so I didn't sleep a wink that night, you guys. Like, I think I slept for 10 minutes at most because I was just watching that tracker. I was watching the tracker to make sure she wasn't on the move. And it was in this moment and so many other moments that I felt like this is what it feels like to love somebody so much more than they love themselves. I can't say that I've ever experienced this before, and, even in Mark's darkest days of alcoholism and all the things that we went through during that time when I loved him more than I knew he loved himself, and that was some really dark those were some really dark years, but this was different. This was different, and I so badly was just sending her so much love, and I so badly just wanted her to know when she opened her eyes and started driving home that she was driving home to herself, and when she gets home, we're going to sit down and we're going to hit the frickin' reset button again. And we're going to figure out what happened and where do we go from here. And so that's what we did. She came home. She basically told me all the things. She was bullied. These girls from high school cornered her, basically just terrible things, right? And just was so vulnerable. And I have to just say, like, Morgan and I have always, like I said, I've always had this great relationship, but boy, this kid, she tells me things that are just so interesting and deep and wise and heartfelt and just so true and deep to her core. I mean, she just lays it out for me, which I'm so grateful for because then I know how she's truly feeling. And she's like, I don't like my job. I don't like the people I'm working with. I don't know what to do. She's just like going on at all the things that are really frustrating. I'm like, okay, all good. Guess what? We're going to quit the job. You're going to quit your job. That's totally fine. Against my brother and everyone else's ideas are like, what? She needs to work. She needs to pay for a car. I'm like, nope. She needs rest. She needs more sound baths, more therapy, more hypnosis, more healing, more sleep, more walks, more laying in the grass. She doesn't need to be adulting right now. This kid needs to chill out and relax. We need to get through some of these traumas that she's working through from ages 3 to 12, which are huge. We're not going to go into those today, but they're significant and they're the root of this story. We're going to work through that because this is what she needs. My job from God was keep this kid safe, healthy, and alive and loved. And that is what I was going to do. So I called her boss. I called the HR manager at this job and I said, here's what's going on. She's not coming back. I'm so sorry. The integrity thing is to give 2 weeks notice and I'm so sorry, but she's not coming back. She no-showed that day, by the way. She was supposed to go to work and she just no-showed, which is totally against what she knows is integral. So that right there was like, I knew, again, similar to I'm going to kill myself and surrender my cat. I knew this kid meant business because she knew how pissed off I'd be if you just no-show. Like I knew she was thinking she wasn't going to have to deal with these repercussions because she wasn't going to live. And so I had a great conversation with this woman at the HR department, told her this is about mental health and her well-being, and Morgan is going to take the summer off. She's not going to work. And you know what? The lady was so gracious and was like, we totally understand. She was such a phenomenal worker and employee. And if she ever wants to come back, she's welcome back here, which I thought was so amazing. It was just so good on her. And so that's what happened. We took the summer off and we spent more time healing, more time grounding, more time sleeping, really, really leaning into her mental health and her well-being. And I just told her, you can just be a kid. You can just be an 18-year-old kid who's taking the summer off. Like that's what we're going to do. And she and I had so many discussions about the why she created Max and the why she wanted to take her own life and the why she felt like she was here. Like, why was she here on this earth? I kept asking her, why do you think you're going through these things? What do you think you're here for? She's got such a kind heart. I just knew she had the answers and I wanted to hear them. So, oh, you guys, I feel like I'm all over the board. I hope you're following and tracking. I know this is a lot and this is very heavy. So thank you so much for listening. I'm going to just shift into the end of summer because we had a beautiful summer. It was a bit tumultuous, ups and downs. We still were dealing with some things, but then we moved into August. And August was pivotal because she had spent a few months relaxing and restoring, pouring into herself, loving herself, and really leaning into the hypnosis therapy that she was working with my friend Carrie. You all know Carrie from Love of Your Life Energetics. She's phenomenal. She was really leaning into her own deep, dark thoughts and removing the deep, dark thoughts from her mental mindset and moving that energy out. So fast forward into August, and now she's shed some more weight. By now, she's lost about 50 pounds. And she's starting to lean into some hobbies. She's telling me she loves photography and she found this job online that's a part-time job with this company called Life Touch. And she thinks she wants to apply and she's feeling like she wants to get into doing something part-time and it's seasonal. So it's only a couple of months job. And I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. So she applies, gets the job, obviously, right out of the gate. They love her. We go get her some new clothes. She's starting to feel good in her own skin, listening to herself, kind of just get herself a little bit of a new wardrobe. And she starts this job and she starts really focusing in on her purpose, right? Now she's in a role, she's in a bit of a leadership role, and she's leaning into purpose. Like she needs to show up for herself. And we're talking about integrity. And I said, you can show up however you want, no judgment. At this point, she's still somewhat tracking a more masculine energy feel and look, and that's totally fine. And she starts going into these schools. So Life Touch is a company that does the school photos. I was laughing just now because I remember when she told me she wanted to work for Life Touch, I was like, oh, sweet. Do they still have the laser backgrounds? Dating myself, but the laser backgrounds, y'all know what I'm talking about. Apparently they don't. They have some new ones, but she's really leaning into this job and really loving working with kids. And so she's coming home at the end of the day after, a long day of taking photos, something she loves to do. And she's telling me about all the people she's meeting and all the kids that she's impacting lives. And she's showing up in a way that she feels comfortable and she's meeting friends and she's got this inner circle of a couple of young girls that are also working for the company, and she's just really starting to like find her groove. And so August was super pivotal. You guys, I started to feel like, oh my gosh, she's seeing it. She's seeing the light. I'm seeing this light bulb go off, and she's really leaning into who she is. Postures change. Like I said, she's lost about 50 pounds by this point. Her whole dynamic is changing. She's doing chiropractic. She's doing some yoga, sauna, all the things. And she's really just like, yeah, I feel like I I have meaning here. And so we're not talking about suicide anymore. Now she's talking about her day, like how great her day was and what she was doing. And so basically shifting into September when, as I've mentioned, I take a fall break and I kind of sink into my own things. This is where I start to feel like I can take a breath. I can take a freaking huge giant breath because no longer was she threatening her life, and no longer was she super sad and feeling like she was a burden or wasn't loved. Like now she's hanging out with friends and she's being a teenager and being a kid. And I told her and Mark that I felt like I needed to take a bit of a break and take a solo Jen trip and just really sink into a few things for myself. And September was the month that I felt like I could finally do that. So that's what I did. And Mark was home base, obviously. And I booked a couple of trips for myself and sat down with Morgan and we had a conversation about I'm going to be gone for a week or two and how she felt about that. And we had the most beautiful conversation. And she basically understood that she was safe and she was happy and she was healthy and she was balanced. And we had a plan for when I was gone, like we would stay connected. And she was doing more hypnosis. I had let some of my friends that she was working with know, like, hey, I'm going to be out. So if she needs to lean on you, she might need to reach to you. But everything was good. I went to Boca for a week in Florida. Went to a Kathy Heller retreat to spend some time with my girlfriends in one of the most beautiful inner circles. I spent some time on the beach, relaxing, restoring, just breathing in salt air, and just really, really resting and restoring my own body. Also spending some time in reflecting on what the hell just happened, what this whole year was, really leaning into what does this mean? Normally I take time off to like look at goals. What does the goals for Jen Heller lifestyle look like? Where are we at with it? And I took this break and this time to pour into myself and to spend some time resting, reading, a lot of thinking and looking back and reflecting. And here's what I came up with is that I created this show, Homes That Heal, a few years ago or a couple years ago to really help people create their own sanctuary spaces. And I've been building this for years for myself and for Mark and I. And I really started to think about like, holy cow, we just completely watched, like, we brought Morgan into our home. We not only kept her alive and restored her health, but we watched this entire transformation happen inside our home because we created a home that heals. We created a life that heals and a lifestyle. And it hit me in Florida when I was laying on the beach. I don't even remember. I was almost late for my flight because I remember laying on the beach in just like total paralysis of thinking like, we saved this kid's life, but what we really did was we created this lifestyle for her to really understand how to take care of yourself and how to create a home and what a healthy relationship looks like and what loving yourself looks like and what leaning on your friends and your family and your resources look like. And like, we showed her what to do, how to do it inside the walls of our home. And I started thinking like, I've poured so much time into saunas and like that's been kind of my main vein for so long. But I have to tell you that this is more than modalities. This is more than just these wellness tools you can bring in your home. This is like a connection of bringing yourself home to yourself and bringing yourself home to a more spiritual, grounded connection with God and Mother Earth. And I really just don't even know how to describe this into words because I had just my own release on the beach that morning of like, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than just my show. This is bigger than just a brand and a business. This is really what it's all about. And this is what I really want to do. And this is what I want to teach people is how to create a home that heals. And when I came back from my trip, I was in Boca for a week and I was in Las Vegas actually working on a mastermind with my friend James Malinchek, who you'll hear more about in the coming months, of course. He and I are working on a project or some things on just speaking and leadership and educate on a state, I'll get into that on a later date. But I spent a few weeks just really looking at like, what is it that I really want to do? And how do I want to show up? And how can I teach this story to other people to help other people? And no, I can't sell tickets or give tours in my home by any stretch, but there are ways in which that I can help other people understand what I've done and other things that people can do in their own homes to create homes that heal or create homes that harmonize for themselves, for their kids, for their family, and just everyday life. And so I came back from these trips and then I just spent October just like totally pouring into our home and like enjoying it in a way of like really enjoying it. Like I've been working on some interior design, like some redecorating and just like again, more time hanging out with Morgan and Mark and we're just like, sitting in the living room and laughing and talking and writing and we're reading and journaling and Morgan's writing poetry now and she's just like leaning into that and my mom came to visit, my brother came over. We celebrated Morgan's 19th birthday and I'm going to end with just this one last story of just to kind of wrap this all up because I know it's getting long. And again, I appreciate you all listening. Thank you so much. Again, I feel like I'm all over the board and I've done pretty well, not crying like a baby during the whole thing. But this is the catalyst right here is late October, Morgan turned 19 and Mark was out of town, I think, or I don't know where he was at. Maybe he was at tennis. I'm not sure. He wasn't home. And it was a beautiful night, and she and I went out for our evening walk as we do. We go for morning and evening walks. And we're walking around the neighborhood, and this kid, she's now down 70 pounds at this point, by the way, and she's just looking phenomenal and in her own skin and her posture. And she's like, you know, tomorrow's my birthday and I'm so excited and here's what I'm going to do. And oh, by the way, we had set up a whole weekend for her and her girlfriends to hang out at the lake house for the weekend. Our neighbors have an Airbnb on Rock Lake and shout out to them for being so gracious to let the girls go there for the weekend and celebrate Morgan's birthday. And she's literally skipping at this point, telling me her plans and how excited she is that she's gonna be, they're gonna play board games and they're gonna go to the pumpkin patch and they're gonna do all these things. And she's so excited and she's so grateful and just, I mean, literally skipping. I'm like having a hard time keeping up walking with her. She's just talking and her arms are going and she's like, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that. And I'm so excited and we're gonna watch movies and, it's around Halloween and she loves scary movies. And it was dark. We were under the moonlight, but I just stopped. I just stopped and looked at her and I was like, Morgan, do you hear yourself right now? I'm like, do you hear yourself right now? I'm like, you are so excited to turn 19 tomorrow. You're so excited, like you're beaming with joy. And by the way, she's kind of found her own way. She wants to go by the name Morgan again and it's just kind of sinking back into her feminine self. And I just looked at her and I said, do you realize that it wasn't but 90 days ago, 3 months, a few months ago, I said, you were trying to convince me, crying and convince me that you wanted to kill yourself, that you wanted to take your own life. And now here you are, a few months later, you've done the work. You've done the work on yourself, on your healing, on your mental health and your well being. And here you are telling me how grateful you are to turn 19 tomorrow. It was so beautiful. Like we both just hugged each other in the road and we just cried and just embraced. And she's just like, "Oh my God, I didn't even realize. I didn't oh, I yeah." She's like, "Oh my God, that's so weird. That's so weird." I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so grateful." Like, what just happened? Like, the transformation, the corners that she has turned, this kid has turned on her own and has done the work, and Mark and I have given her the supporting foundation and the home and the love and the resources to do it, but she did the work. She did the work on herself, and now here she was just, like, in such gratitude, and we hugged, and we cried, and we hugged, and then we just walked, and then she's like, "You wanna do another lap?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do another lap." So we did another lap, and we came home that night, and, she's like, "You know what? I think I'm ready to share my story. I think I'm ready to tell some people what I wanna do." She's like, I've got an idea." And I was like, "Okay." So she flipped on some music in our great room, and I stepped back into my office to do a few things, and she sat down with her journal, and this kid leaned into writing a story about her story, her journey, and had the confidence to post out on social media that she had decided that she was gonna embrace her name Morgan again, and she was setting down the season of Max, and she's setting it down with gratitude, and she wanted to let her family and friends know why, and she posted this on social media after she had shared with me she had some fears about doing so because her friends, were, possible some backlash and some criticisms and such. And I told her, before you share this, I think you should call your mom and talk to her. She hadn't seen or talked to her mom since like May, or she had spoken to her mom, but she hadn't seen her mom and they hadn't talked about this at all. Like this was all transformationally happening in our home in private. This was not being shared out. Clearly, you're hearing this for the first time. So nobody has any idea besides a few family members, my team, of course, Mark, obviously, and a very few select people in her work circle now, or her girlfriend circle. This was her stepping into who she wants to be and sharing her story and telling her family and her friends. And she posted on social media the night before her birthday how much love and gratitude she had for herself and extended a handout for anybody who had questions and that wanted to let people know that she was happy and healthy and why she had kind of been quiet on her socials for a while. She posted some new pictures, and the amount of love that came back to her in tenfold was just unbelievable. I'm so incredibly proud of her for having the courage to do it. I don't know a lot of adults that have the courage to be authentic online, much less a 19-year-old girl who's gone through what she has. And she hit the post button and came up in my office, and we sat outside my office. I've got a sitting room, we call it the third living room, right outside my office, and we sat there, and we cried, and we laughed, and we embraced, and we just went through it all about this journey and, like, what this year has looked like and what has been and how much love we have for each other and our home and just this entire process, and it's just incredible, you guys. Again, I have a whole new appreciation for parents I have a whole new appreciation for God and my relationship with Him. I have a whole new appreciation for the level of energy in which I didn't know I had. I have a whole new appreciation for this home that we created in this life that Mark and I have created together to create this container and this loving unit for this kid to thrive and become happy and healthy. I have a whole new level of appreciation that I can't even put into words. And the one thing is I got off the rails a little bit on my own health and my own routines, which was difficult. I'm not going to lie. I've struggled a little bit with my own weight this year. I've struggled a little bit with my own mental well-being in the sense of like, where am I going with this? How can I take care of all these other people? I've struggled a bit with sleep. Talk about sleepless nights. Again, shout out to the parents. I never known that I could lay awake for so long and be so tired at the same time. It's been crazy, but it's been worth it, and so I took the a bit of a break. That time was to just get myself back on the rails a little bit and sink back into my own routines. I'm not worried at all. I know what to do, and I know how to take care of myself, but I certainly need to put myself in a bit of a priority, which I am. I just need to shout out to my team before we close here today, and again, I just wanna thank you all for listening. First and foremost, I need to shout out to my team who is so phenomenal on so many levels. They've known a bit of what's going on, but they don't know the whole story, of course, but they've stuck with me through the roller coasters and they've known that I've missed deadlines and I haven't shown up for a lot of things and a lot of things we had to just wing it and go by the wayside. So I appreciate my team so much. We are only as good as the people around us sometimes, and I've surrounded myself and I'm grateful to be surrounded by so many loving friends and family, and my team is just phenomenal. So thank you so much to my team. This has obviously, as I mentioned, taken a toll on a lot of different things, and again, just really forced me to look at what 2026 looks like and what mental health looks like. And again, I feel like I'm a bit all over the board, but this is by no means any judgment for people in their own choices. This is just Morgan's story. These are Morgan's choices, her safety, her alignment, her soul's contract, her story for her highest good. And I just am so incredibly grateful for the resources and the girlfriends. First of all, my girlfriends who've listened to me share a bit and have helped guide me and given me advice. I appreciate you so much. You know who you are. Thank you to my inner circle resources, Carrie, Alex, Meg, and Sonia. Four pillars. You women have been not only my rock over the years, but you really stepped up and have stepped in and have been resources for Morgan when she needed you. And full disclosure, she's still working with all of you, obviously, and you've been phenomenal. And I appreciate you more than you will ever know. I need to thank God, obviously, because I just literally all I kept hearing, and I still do, is keep her safe, keep her healthy, keep her alive, keep her well. And that's what we're doing. And so God has just guided me in a way when I couldn't hear anything through the noise, I could hear him. And boy, have I spent some time praying. I have I have been on my knees more times than I can count in this scenario, asking for guidance and alignment and surrendering, and not easy for someone of my the controller of myself, or the controlling person that I am. I like to be in control. I like to spin a lot of plates and a lot of hats. And this one, boy, this one really this one takes the cake for sure. And so with that also being said, I want to thank you guys as the listeners again for me sharing the story today and being so incredibly loving and caring, and I welcome your feedback. Please feel free to give me your feedback. Please share this with anybody you think who needs to hear it. Again, this isn't anything about judgment. This is literally just a story that I wanted to share that's on my heart. You're going to hear more about it, I promise you. Morgan actually wants to be on my show at some point. She's asked if she could share her story, and I absolutely will be open to that in the new year. So you'll definitely hear more from what I call Morgan's Corner. That's probably coming up in 26. So there'll be more discussion on that in the coming year for sure. So thank you all for being loyal listeners. And thank you to my brother and her mother for trusting in me and my family for trusting in me. And even when you disagreed with a lot of things that I've done or a lot of my tactics, when I was like, nope, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is what I'm hearing. This is where we're going. This is what she needs. very, very interesting path, I will say, with some conversations with my brother, but I know he's very grateful that she's happy and healthy. And last and certainly not least, I need to shout out and thank Mark, my incredibly loyal, patient, loving rock that he is. And let's not forget good looking. I know he'd love me to say, but Mark has been my rock and been Morgan's rock through this entire thing, and never once did he flinch. I didn't even ask, actually, by the way. I'm not sure if I mentioned that at the top of this story. Never even asked him if Morgan could come and live with us. It was just, he just knew. We had talked about it a few years ago, and it was always of his opinion that we will do whatever we need to do for her and for family. And so at the time that this was all happening at 90 miles an hour, I never even really slowed down to ask how he felt about it, what he thought, like ask permission, so to speak. It was like, this is what I think we need to do. And every single time he was like, yep, this is what we're doing. Yep, this is what she needs. Yep. He never questioned it. He's never questioned it. Of course, it's taken a bit of a toll some days, and it's changed our life, and it's changed our schedule, and it's changed our routines, and it's changed our walks, and it's changed our evenings, and it changed a lot. It really did. And I just need you all to know that it is so wickedly important that you find a life partner that has and shares your vision and loves you so unconditionally that it doesn't matter what you have to do, and you do it together. Boy, I know there were days where Mark just wanted to be like, "What in the hell is the because I would, I just don't even want to get into it. There were some really rough days for me when I was just kind of losing my mind and not sure what to do, but he brought it back to center every time and just stayed solid and grounded and kept this house whole and kept things moving and kept me grounded and kept reminding me. He kept reminding me who I am and that we have this, and we're doing this together, and that we are a family unit. And he loved me through all of it and loved Morgan through all of it and continues to love us and continues to be our rock and continues to be the man that I need him to be. And so for that, I'm grateful. And for that, I encourage everybody listening, if you have a person in your life that is really stepping up or really is your rock and your foundation, please tell them how much you're grateful for them. Please let them know how much they mean to you. Please let them know they are loved and needed and wanted and desired, and that they're important to you, because I don't know what I would do without him in our life. It is so wickedly important to have somebody that really gets you and really, really holds you and holds that space for you. So I appreciate you, Mark. I know you're listening because you listen to all my shows. I love you, and you are everything to me and Morgan. So with that being said, you guys, this has definitely been a vulnerable show. I appreciate you again for listening. I appreciate you for being supportive, and I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate you sharing this with anyone who needs to hear it. I appreciate anything that has felt off over the year. If you're like, oh, she's kind of seems like things are off the rails. Like a few weeks ago, we had some technical difficulties on some of the shows, and I sounded like Darth Vader talking down a tunnel. You guys, I just didn't have the energy to make things perfect. And if I've learned anything this year, it's that perfectionism is not necessary. It's just not. So again, thank you for rolling with me and being loyal, and I love you all, and I'll see you next week.
Okay, friends and fellow wellness warriors, thanks for tuning in today. If this show was helpful and inspired you, please head over to Apple or Spotify to rate, review, subscribe, and follow us, as well as share it with your friends and family. It's a fantastic way to grow the show, expand my reach, and teach others how to create a vibrant life they love. If you're ready to invest in your health and purchase a Clear Light sauna, hop on over to jenhellerlifestyle.com and send me a note. Thanks again for tuning in. I love you. I'm grateful for you, and I thank you so much for your support. You are the reason I do this work. You are the reason I do this show. And you are the reason I get up every single day with a burning desire in my soul. Cheers to your health and happiness, my friends. We'll see you next week. This podcast is for general information purposes only and is not intended to be substituted for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you think you have a medical condition, consult your licensed physician.